welcome back to another edition of Bailey Price Media Live.
Bailey Price Media, I like it.
What's going on, everybody? Happy Tuesday. Welcome back to another edition of Bailey Price Media Live. Today, I got a special guest for you guys. Former NFL quarterback, Washington State Cougar legend. He's a fellow Pacific Northwest product like myself. Alex Brink joins the show. We're going to talk all things NFL and college football quarterback play, including John Mateer and his potential at Oklahoma under their new OC and former Wazoo OC, Ben Arbuckle. We're also going to talk about Kyle Williams and whether he's the biggest steal in the 2025 NFL draft. Colorado fans will definitely remember Kyle Williams torching Travis Hunter about a year and a half ago. So we'll discuss that as well. We're also going to discuss Sam Leavitt, Arizona State quarterback, and Kenny Dillingham in Arizona State, and discuss Leavitt's potential this season and whether he's has the potential to be the best quarterback in college football. We're going to talk Colorado Buffaloes football a little bit. We had a great show yesterday on 0 to 60 with Matt McChesney, and we'll be back tomorrow. We got special guests all week on that show. But Colorado and Deion Sanders retired Shedeur Sanders and Travis Hunter's jersey. Shedeur obviously wore 2. Travis Hunter wore 12. They retired that. Both their jerseys at Colorado, which I thought was a very interesting move, considering I think only 4 Colorado players in the history of Colorado football have had their jerseys retired, and none of them are they're not Deion Figures, not Cordell Stewart, but Shedeur Sanders and Travis Hunter. Interesting. Nonetheless, I got to get Alex Brink's take on that and so much more. But without further ado, let's go ahead and bring in our special guest, former NFL quarterback, Washington State Cougar legend, and the king of the Apple Cup, Alex Brink. Alex, can't thank you enough for joining, man. How you doing?
I'm doing very well. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely, man. Can't thank you enough for joining. Happy Tuesday. And it's an honor to have you join the program, man. I'm a Pacific Northwest product, Seattle guy, grew up a Washington Husky. Got to watch you kick the shit out of my Huskies every year. 3-time Apple Cup champion. Alex, can you guys just talk about your dominance in the Apple Cup here? There's nobody like you from a Washington State Cougars perspective. What's it like being the 3-time champ, so to speak, of the Apple Cup and dominating the Huskies?
Yeah, man. I mean, it's obviously a huge honor. Like when you talk about Washington State and what that rivalry means over 100 years of Apple Cups played, and no matter what the conferences are, right? No matter what the realignment's done, I think that rivalry really runs deep. And so to be the only Washington State quarterback to defeat the Dogs 3 times, pretty special. Special for our coaching staff, special for my senior class for sure. We had some epic ones over there in Husky Stadium as well as in on the Palouse. So, man, a lot of fun. Obviously, proud to say that we did it 3 times.
Absolutely. And I'm starstruck because as a kid watching, I was a Husky fan, grew up in the heart of Seattle, go to Husky games all the time. And I remember like it was yesterday, man. So I'm honored to have you on the show. And I got to ask you, you mentioned conference realignment and how that applies to Washington State. What are your thoughts on kind of the fall of the Pac-12, so to speak? Pac-12 is no longer, and now you see in conference realignment, but you got Washington State and Oregon State still running with the original Pac-12, so to speak. But can you kind of talk about your thoughts on the conference realignment and how that's affected Washington State Cougar football?
Well, I think from a really big picture standpoint, it makes me sad. Like I'm a West Coast college football purist. I grew up in Eugene, Oregon, going to Autzen Stadium and Oregon Duck games, and watched dynasties like USC and UW in the 90s, and Oregon as they've blown up, and I just think I think the Pac-12 and the Pac-10 when I was playing was a great football product, and I think what you saw as conference realignment played out was that yes, in fact, the former Pac-12 was really formidable. And it wasn't so much that they couldn't compete on a national level, it's that they beat each other up. Because if you look at, what happened when all those teams went into other conferences like Arizona State, like Oregon, they went and won the Big 12 and won the Big 10, and were representative in the college football playoff. So, I think in the end, the Pac itself kind of cannibalized itself, so to speak.
Well
and
said.
then obviously, when USC and UCLA made the business decision to move to the Big 10, that started the dominoes. And as far as how it affects Washington State and Oregon State, I mean, I think in general, the business of college football is changing. We're seeing that. That's a challenge for programs like Washington State and Oregon State that, maybe don't have the donor base to fund NIL. Maybe they're in more remote parts of the country where they're not able to generate ticket revenue through, obviously through size of their stadiums, through media rights deals, and ultimately it puts them on a little bit tougher playing field. And so for Washington State, they got to find a way to reinvent themselves. I'm excited about the reformation of the Pac-12 because look, the Pac's not dying. Like it's going to still be strong. Boise State was just in the college football playoff. They're in the new Pac. Teams like Fresno State, Colorado State, Oregon State, Washington State. I mean, those are really good football programs, that can win on a national scale. And then, you layer in basketball and adding Gonzaga and all that. I mean, that's a really good league. So I'm excited for that. I think Washington State football will still be strong, will still be a national brand. But in the end, I think conference realignment sucks. I think it was really poorly done. I think we're going to look back in 20 years, and I think all this is going to get unwound at some point. But for now, this is the world we live in.
Yeah, absolutely. And Alex, well said by you, because I'm with you. I'm a Pac-12 guy. Seeing the way the dismantlement of the Pac-12, so to speak, it's ironic because you go and see these Pac-12 teams be dominant the next season. I think you put it best. The Pac-12 definitely cannibalized itself, and in the same way the Big 12, I think last year cannibalized itself, so to speak. Kind of down year, so to speak, but a lot of pretty damn decent teams beating up on each other. I got to start with the guy that I believe you train, actually, Sam Levitt here. Let's start here. So like I mentioned, Big 12 guy, Sam Levitt's returning to Arizona State for another season. I got to ask you, what is his potential this season? Does he have the potential to be the best quarterback in college football? I'm a big fan of Kenny Dillingham, what he's doing at Arizona State, winning the Big 12, going at it with Texas in the college football playoff. They were, this damn close from winning that game. But what are your thoughts on Sam Levitt and his potential this season?
Yeah, Sam's a fantastic young player. I mean, I've known him since he was in third grade. He's a young man that's way beyond his years when it comes to football knowledge and his maturity, not to mention his physical tools. I mean, you saw that as just a redshirt freshman on the field, this last year for Arizona State. And, he found himself in a fantastic situation. You mentioned Kenny Dillingham, Marcus Arroyo, the offensive coordinator. Those are two of the brightest offensive minds in college football. And to have them both on that staff and helping Sam Levitt. And, when you can build a roster like Arizona State's built a roster over the last 12 months and will continue to do so, when you got a trigger man like Sam, I think offensively, kind of the sky's the limit. So, again, I was really impressed with what Sam did this offseason or this last season, but not surprised by any means. I mean, he, as a young player, you could see that, he had a special makeup about him. So could he be the best player or the best quarterback in college football? Absolutely. He's got those tools. And I'm excited to see him go do it on Saturdays.
Absolutely. And I think last season, Levitt, you got Scotabo, Arizona State. I think they outperformed their ceiling, so to speak. I don't think anybody expected going into last season, especially with the Big 12, them being on top of the Big 12, so to speak. I think they were predicted to be last, and Kenny Dillingham and Arizona State really proved a lot of people wrong here. Going into this season, the Big 12 has a lot of question marks. Arizona State, I think, is going to be top dog or one of them. We don't know what Colorado is going to be like with the loss of Shedeur Sanders and Travis Hunter. Rich Rod's over at West Virginia. He returns to West Virginia, so who knows what they'll be like. I think Texas Tech's going to be very formidable going into the season. Alex, how do you feel about Arizona State going into the season in the Big 12? Do you think they're going to be formidable? Is it their conference to win? How do you feel?
I think you're right. I mean, I think there's a lot of parity right now. I think there's parity in college football in general with what can happen during an offseason. I mean, you look at a team like Texas Tech, who's got $20+ million in an NIL budget. I mean, they can go get whoever they want in a relative sense. And so, I think that changes the dynamic year to year. Very similar to what happened to Arizona State. I mean, they remade that roster through transfer portal and NIL, including Sam Levitt, had some good pieces already there. And when you layer that together, you can end up having a special season. So, I think it's a little hard to tell this early in the offseason. I think a lot of those teams are trying to figure out who they're going to be and what they're going to be, especially with new coaches or returning coaches like Rich Rod in West Virginia. But To me, the Big 12 is a conference that is going to constantly get kind of picked from by the Big Ten and the SEC, and they're going to have to remake from other conferences. And I think year in and year out, we're going to see new faces pop up and new teams pop up. I think Arizona State returns one of the best rosters, and it certainly has the inside track.
Absolutely. And going back to Levitt a little bit in Arizona State, this is a guy that you trained through your E-Force training facility in Portland, correct?
That's right.
Absolutely. Can you talk about Levitt's character a little bit and just kind of the type of guy he is, type of work ethic he has, and just talk about him a little bit?
Oh, he's a fantastic young man. I mean, he works incredibly hard. He comes from a football family. Dad played linebacker at BYU. His brother's in the NFL as a safety. So he kind of knew what the expectation was as far as what it takes to play quarterback at a high level and play football at a high level. So he really bought into that. And, I was always impressed with the way, he approached each offseason. He knew what he wanted to do to get better. When he was on, with all his teammates, he challenged them to be better. He was always the guy that was picking guys up and finding ways to make those around him better. And so he's really a coach's dream. And I think obviously Coach Dillingham and those guys have found that, great leader in the locker room. So again, like I said before, just not at all surprised by his success and assume that there's much more of it to come.
Absolutely. And like you mentioned, he is a leader. I wanted to show a clip of Levitt talking about him growing as a leader going into the season for ASU. Take a listen.
Good. I kind of tried to tailor off it from the start of spring ball just because we haven't played ball in so long and people are still getting their feet wet. But now I'm really starting to get on people's heads more, and we got to really start clicking. And I got to demand more out of myself and more out of them. But they're taking it really well, and people are starting to step up when I bring some juice, which is what we need to see.
Ooh, I like to hear that from Levitt. Alex, before we move on, your thoughts on Levitt's comments there on how he's really pushing guys as a leader for ASU?
It's part of growing as a quarterback, right? Especially as a young player, you come in and transfer in, and then you win the starting job. You kind of immediately earn some respect, but guys still want to see you put it on the field. And then as you go through a special season like they had, you really build that cachet to be able to, like you said, challenge guys and hold yourself to high expectation, but hold those around you to a high expectation. And look, they know, right? They go, you make a run like that. The next off season, there's going to be so much expectation around the season coming up that you do really have to double down, I think, on your preparation. And Sam recognizes that obviously you don't want to rest on your laurels, and I think you can see that in that clip and the leadership he's showing.
Absolutely. Well said, Alex. And I'm really excited to see Arizona State compete in the Big 12 this season. It's April, so it's early. Transfer portal, as you know, is going crazy right now. We're seeing all kinds of movement. So we'll really dive into rosters as we get closer to the season. But I had to ask you about Levitt, your guy who you train at your facility here. I want to talk some Cougs football, Cougs quarterbacks with you here a little bit. I got to talk about a former Cougs quarterback here. So John Mateer transferred to Oklahoma, and now he is with his former OC here, Ben Arbuckle. Alex, I wanted to ask you about his potential at Oklahoma this season. I heard Jake Dickert in a press conference when John Mateer transferred say that this kid could be the best player in college football going into next season here. Alex, how do you feel about John's potential as Oklahoma's quarterback here under Ben Arbuckle as his OC? Go ahead.
Yeah, I think speaking to just Mateer in general, I mean, he's as special a player as you'll find. A unique combination of physical tools, competitiveness, arm talent. His legs really are what separate him. Obviously, it's really hard to bring him down in the pocket. He makes a ton of off-schedule plays, and this day and age, that's obviously a premium. And so, we saw that at Washington State. He was really the straw that stirred the drink and the difference maker. I think Ben Arbuckle was a part of that, but I mean, really, that was number 10. He was making a ton of plays. I think in regards to his opportunity at Oklahoma, I don't know probably enough about their roster to speak to that, other than I know that he's going to make those guys better, and he's going to make a ton of plays. So my assumption would be is that he's going to have a ton of success at Oklahoma. In general, and I think going with your offensive coordinator gives you a familiarity that really helps.
Yeah, absolutely. And having that familiarity for Brent Venables in Oklahoma, I think will be really an asset to Mateer. I got to ask you about their relationship. And we saw it last season for the Cougs. Obviously, the Cougs again win the Apple Cup like you did back in the day. But now transitioning, going to Oklahoma, these two in their relationship, is that something that people across college football should be looking at? Kind of a down year for Oklahoma this past season, but I think Mateer, we heard a lot of noise about him potentially going to Miami. I think a lot of teams were really after Mateer here, but him reunited with his OC, is this something more people across college football should be watching?
I think just in general, the recognition that we've seen it for, in pro sports, we see it in pro sports all the time, right? As players move and go to new spots, they got to learn new offenses. They got to kind of figure out how to be successful. For college football and the transfer portal, it's all pretty new, right? And we're not quite sure yet how it all plays out. But I think you can see that sometimes guys that you think are locks transfer, and they don't realize that transition of having a new offensive coordinator and going to a new city and a new school and a new locker room and all that stuff, like that can be hard, right? That's why it's hard for pros too, and those guys are that's what they do for a living. And so I think for Mateer and any other player that's able to go with their coach or end up with a coach they're familiar with, I think that's a benefit. So I think in general, when you look at the landscape of college football, we should be probably evaluating a lot of these moves based on where they're going, who they're ending up with, and what the familiarity is with that situation.
Yeah, absolutely. Well said. And it's going to be something to watch with Oklahoma. Last season, they had Jackson Arnold, and then Michael Hawkins was a true freshman last season. Now they elect to go to transfer portal. I think they're ready to win now here, so to speak. And I'm excited to see Mateer at OU. We have a former Oklahoma running back Rodney Anderson joining the show Thursday, so I can't wait to get his take on Mateer in Oklahoma here. Alex, I got to move forward and ask you, is Kyle Williams the biggest steal in the 2025 NFL draft? I host a Colorado Buffalo show with Matt McChesney, and here's Williams torching our guy Travis Hunter here. Is he the biggest steal in the 2025 NFL draft?
Well, I probably don't know enough about the 2025 NFL draft and the prospects involved, but I can tell you what, Kyle Williams is going to make an NFL team very happy. I mean, he is as good as it gets at the receiver position. He can do a lot of things at the line of scrimmage. He catches the ball really well. You can just see that the speed and the separation is the other thing. I mean, he's running by a guy like Travis Hunter. When he gets the ball in his hands, he's able to change direction and get upfield very quickly. I mean, all those things play well at the NFL level. The speed's obviously going to be different, but I think Kyle Williams has a little something extra. And I think his journey, right, going from UNLV, then Washington State, he was kind of the two behind Josh Kelly the previous year. And then now he gets to be the guy this most recent season and really shows up in a big way. So he's had a fantastic offseason, which was, preceded by a fantastic season. So my assumption is he's only going to get better.
Absolutely. Well said. And here you see the speed. I believe he ran a 4.4 flat, but I mean, he looks faster on tape here if you watch him on tape. I got to ask you, his NFL draft stock, and do you have a good team that is a good fit for him, so to speak? I know he's meeting with Seattle, Miami. I believe Pittsburgh's also in the meetings process for him. But do you have a good team, a good fit for Kyle Williams in the NFL draft here?
To be honest with you, like his skill set is so versatile, right? Because he can play in the slot if he has to. He can get outside. This day and age in the NFL, unless you're like a really big-bodied receiver that has a specific role at the X, maybe, they want guys that can be multiple, right? You look at, teams like the Rams, teams like the Vikings, teams like the Dolphins, like anybody in that kind of new age, Kyle Shanahan, Sean McVay offense, they're going to use receivers in the run game with fly sweep. They're going to want to see them go in motion. The Kyle Williams game kind of plays to that. In general, the NFL game fits what Kyle Williams' skill set is. So I think wherever he ends up, he's going to find success.
Well said. Well said. And I was like, who is this kid? This kid can play. And that brings me to my next point here. His former quarterback, Cam Ward. I got to ask you, it seems like the Titans are a lock at number 1 to draft Cam Ward. Kind of talk about him, his transition. He came up to you guys at Wazoo from Incarnate Ward, had a hell of a year. We all thought he was going to go to the NFL draft. He ends up transferring down to Mari Crispo in Miami. Has a pretty damn good year. And now he's slated to be the number 1 pick in the NFL draft. What are your thoughts about him as a player, his time at Washington State. Go ahead.
I think that was one of those. That's one of the great versions to me of the transfer portal in both cases, right? Like he goes from Incarnate Word and FCS school to Washington State, with his offensive coordinator Eric Morris, and gets an opportunity to play big time college football and kind of puts himself on the map. And then, at that point, it's NFL or transfer again. And honestly, his tape at Washington State probably, definitely didn't lend him to be the number 1 overall pick. And so he gets an opportunity to go again to Miami. And put some incredible things on tape, showed some great growth. And now he's he's got a chance, obviously, to be first overall and, have a pretty life-changing experience. So, I love that. I'm so happy for Cam. He's a fantastic kid with a ton of potential. And, really, I think in general, when you talk about him as a player is, his creativity, his arm talent, kind of the instinctive nature of which he plays is very reminiscent of some quarterbacks that are in the league right now. And so,
sure.
The hope is that he can become that, right? He's not that now, but he has that ability, which is why he's projected to go so high.
Man, now, Alex, I got to ask you, because I agree with you on Cam Ward. I host a Colorado show, and people are big on Shedeur Sanders. I got to ask you about this year's quarterback draft. You got Shedeur. Obviously, Cam Ward's going number 1. Kyle McCord from Syracuse is getting a lot of love. Will Howard coming from Ohio State winning the Natty. Several others here. How do you feel about this year's quarterback draft? Do you have Cam Ward at the top of your quarterback draft this year? Do you believe Shedeur Sanders is that guy? How do you feel about him? How do you feel about this year's quarterback draft?
I think it's a pretty unique quarterback class, right? I don't think there's anybody that's, a lock to find success at the NFL level. I mean, I think they all have a ton of ability and the ability to be really impactful players in the league. But, they definitely have some questions to be answered. I think that's fair across the board. Shedeur and Cam have put a ton of great things on tape in the last couple of years. And so they certainly have kind of the inside track. I got to see Kyle McCord live in the Holiday Bowl when Syracuse played Washington State, and I was really impressed with him. And you kind of, if you peel that one back and you realize that he was an 11-game winner at Ohio State the year before, he was a former Elite 11 quarterback. He's a really special player, and he was incredibly productive this last year at Syracuse. So I'm pretty high on Kyle McCord. I think Will Howard's been really productive all along the way. Guys like Jackson Dart, really productive, but again, had their ups and downs. So we're going to find out, obviously, like as these guys move forward, where that, who's going to have success. I think it's interesting because in the past, you usually have 2, 3, 4 guys that you feel really good about being, starters on Sundays and winning a ton of games and leading teams to playoffs. I don't know that you can say that same about this group.
Yeah, and my boss, Coach JB, thinks this is the worst quarterback draft in the history of the NFL draft. He is not big on this quarterback draft at all. I think if you had to pick a guy, he's probably going Cam Ward. But I had to get it from you. I've had Super Bowl champion quarterback Sean King on, who's broken this draft down. He gets a lot of flack. I don't agree with this, but he gets a lot of flack because he had a late first-round grade, early second-round grade on Shedeur Sanders. If you're grading Shedeur Sanders, where do you have him and why? I'm curious.
Yeah, I think he's a first-round pick. I don't think I don't think you can deny that. Showing the production, showing the ability. He's a guy that. The one thing I will say about Shedeur is, when you play in the NFL, you've got all eyes on you times a million, right? Like it is the ultimate limelight, and the scrutiny is huge. He's had that from day one, right? At just being where he was at, and the nature of his recruitment, the nature of the transfer to Colorado and his dad and the whole thing. So I think he may be in a unique position to handle the pressures of being an NFL quarterback, which, that you can't really understate that. Going into the NFL as a rookie, as a first-round draft pick, the expectations are huge. The margin for error is small. And if you're not ready for that moment, it can eat you alive. And I feel like for him, that would be an advantage he may have in general because of the way the last few years has gone for him.
Yeah, and one thing I'll say about Shedeur Sanders, just covering him the last 2 years, he is tough as shit. Like their offensive line has not been great. They've had a very poor offensive line, and he has taken a lot of hits here, and we've seen it. And the one thing he does is when he gets hit in the mouth, he gets up and responds, spits up blood, and he's like, "I'm going to go respond." Matt and I had several live streams this past season, kind of discussing it and showing that. Where he'll get absolutely killed, and he'll get up and respond here. So hypothetically, if Shedeur is taken by a team with a not great offensive line, I think the one silver lining to that is he is extremely tough here. Alex, that brings me to my next point here. And this is a huge topic across social media. Colorado and Deion Sanders have retired Shedeur Sanders, number 2, and Travis Hunter's number 12. Travis Hunter obviously won the Heisman this past season. Shedeur comes off a very successful season this past year, and now Shedeur actually holds the all-time highest completion percentage in college football history. Alex, I'm not sure how much you take away from that considering Colorado's offense, but let me ask you, there's a lot of heat coming at Coach Prime in Colorado for retiring Shedeur Sanders and Travis Hunter's jersey so quickly after their past season here headed into the NFL draft. What are your thoughts on this? Is this deserving? Is this do you not like this? Are you not a fan of this? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I don't know I can't speak to the qualifications of what jersey retirement is in general across college football, right? I feel like every school's got different, probably a different take on that. A lot of guys, it's history. A lot of guys, it's maybe recent success. And so, I think for Colorado, there's no doubt the attention on that program changed. With Deion Sanders as the head coach and Shedeur and Travis Hunter being a part of that program. So, I think in that respect, they've earned a lot of credibility. I don't know where a jersey retirement fits in that situation, but like two fantastic players that had great careers there, and so kudos to them.
Yeah, I think the biggest takeaway and pushback with this, at least, and I've spoken with Matt McChesney about this. You don't retire Deion Figueroa's jersey. Granted, he wore 3 jerseys there, but you don't retire his jersey. You're retiring Shedeur's jersey. Travis Hunter, I get. I think Travis Hunter is a freaking unicorn, an unbelievable player, something we haven't seen, and I think he's going to go prove that at the next level here. Shedeur Sanders, I think, had a hell of a year this past year, but he didn't win the Heisman. I guess he was a Heisman finalist, but if we're being real, it's probably a tag-along finalist, so to speak, to Travis Hunter. Oh, man, EB, Eric Bieniemy, I don't think his jersey's retired. I don't think Cordell Stewart's is. Darian Hagan's is not. I know that. I don't know. And Colorado fans we call them the prime sexuals, Alex, on our other shows here. They're very sensitive. You say something they don't like, and they'll go at you on Twitter if it's not 100% agreeing to what they think here. I'm going to be honest. I really think Colorado jumped the gun with this, especially since the NFL draft is less than 10 days away here. I don't know. I think when you have so many legendary players there that have played at a high level in the NFL, I don't know. I got to go at Coach Prime in Colorado for this one. I don't agree with this, unfortunately. And it is what it is. Do I think they had a great, phenomenal season this past year? Yes. Do I think Travis Hunter's a freaking unicorn and an unbelievable talent and should be the damn number 1 pick? Yes. Does that make them deserving of retiring their jersey right after the year? No. The only and Alex, you can maybe attest to this. The only other recent jersey retirement that I can even think of that happened so quickly was Caleb Williams in USC. They retired his jersey, I think, before his rookie season after he won the Heisman. That's the only one I can even think of. And my last question to you about this, jersey retirements in college football, is it deserving? Is it because we had a Drew Pearson Hall of Fame wide receiver on JB's show this morning, and he's like, why are you even retiring jerseys in college football? That's not what it's for. Like, is it an NFL thing? What are your thoughts on just jersey retirements in college football in general, Alex?
Well, I think it's going to get a lot harder now with transfer portal because, I guess in the end, like, part of jersey retirements is the legacy that, right, like a player has had with that team. And like, there's a pretty good chance that most of the best players will not have had much of a legacy with the team. They might have recent success or what it is, but they wouldn't have spent 4 or 5 years there or to, I think probably, anybody's point around like what that means. And, when we talk about retiring a jersey in the NFL, most of those guys have been with a franchise for 10 years or they've done some really incredible things. So I think that part will make it really tough to judge whether somebody's deserving or not deserving, because most of the athletes probably won't have been out of school very long.
No, that's a great point. And Shedeur and Travis, they were just at Jackson State 2 years ago. Caleb Williams, again, Oklahoma, like we just mentioned. This is the transfer portal, the new the new era of college football, so to speak. I got to ask you, Alex, and I can't thank you enough for joining here. When you were playing, could you have envisioned a transfer portal, NIL, where you're seeing guys having so-called active contract negotiations in college football? Is that something you could have pictured when you were playing even 10 years ago or even now? Like, 5 years ago, I couldn't have predicted this, but go ahead.
No, I mean, obviously the world's changed so much in the last 2 or 3 years. It's been 20 years since, I first got to strap it up for Washington State. And so, it's forever ago, but like college football's changed, and like, I get why, and I get how. And I think we all agree that it's an imperfect way to do it. And you just hope that somewhere along the line, some adults get in the room and are able to put some guardrails on things. I think paying players is the right idea. I think the ability for players to have movement is the right idea. But the system already exists, and it's in the NFL. So you might as well just mirror it off the NFL, and you get all the best rules because they've been doing it for 100 years. So you might as well do it like that, right? And so I think they'll get there at some point. It won't be college football that we grew up on and that we knew and that I played, but I think it can still be a good product, and it can still be something that fans can show up on Saturdays and cheer for.
Yeah, absolutely. And well said. I just think right now it's so unregulated. We're seeing a lot of people are calling it the wild, wild west, so to speak, just the unregulated craziness in college football here. It is a different game than the one I grew up watching and you played. So, but Alex, man, I can't thank you enough for joining. It's been a tremendous honor as a Pacific Northwest guy, like myself, looking up, growing up watching you kick the shit out of my Huskies every year, man. You were the Apple Cup king. Alex Brink, I can't thank you enough for joining, man. I appreciate you.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Absolutely. Enjoy your Tuesday, man. Thank you so much. Shout out to Alex Brink, Washington State Cougar legend, the king of the Apple Cup, 3-time Apple Cup champion here, 11 touchdowns, no pick in the Apple Cup. Shout out to Alex Brink for joining the show. Thursday, we got a special treat for you guys. Rodney Anderson, former Oklahoma running back and the older brother of LSU wide receiver transfer Nick Anderson, joins the show on Thursday. He's going to break down Nick's potential as playing for LSU, his potential going into this season. He's about to have a hell of a year. We're also going to talk John Mateer, playing for his OC Ben Arbuckle at OU. We're going to talk about that. And OU's got a lot of portal action going here. Multiple running backs enter the portal, and as Cal running back Jalen Ott enters the portal here, it sounds like Oklahoma is going to be in play for Jalen Ott here. So we're going to ask Rodney Anderson about that on Thursday. If you're watching, though, hit that like button, subscribe, become a member of Bailey Price Media Army today. Remember, this show is live every single Tuesday and Thursday at 3 p.m. Eastern. We're going to have all new guests here every week. I'll also be live tomorrow on 0 to 60 with Matt McChesney here. We're going to have several guests here. Friday, we got Chad Brown. Tomorrow, we got Hannibal Knives join the show. So we got a plethora of special guests here for you guys, and I appreciate all you guys tuning in. Shout out to Chris, Mike Bundy, Joe Accord, and so many others for tuning in and watching. I appreciate you. Enjoy your Tuesday, and I'll see you tomorrow on 0 to 60 and on the Coach JB show. Just can't wait for that one. Get ready for his thumbnail tomorrow. It's going to be great. I appreciate you watching, and enjoy your Tuesday. Peace.